Welcome back. Today we're going to unpack lesson 12. I am upset because I see a meaningless world. The lesson starts very quickly reminding us that the importance of this lesson is that it contains a correction for a major perceptual distortion. And that major perceptual distortion is going to change how we see ourselves and how we see the world. And we've been practicing for the last 11 days with this concept. And because we're introducing this relationship or project or aspiration that we really care about, we're gaining day by day direct access to seeing very clearly what is arising in the mental emotional field that is not in alignment with our truest, deepest aspiration. So, what we're learning to do is actually discern who we are from what is arising in the mental emotional field. That is what the book is referring to on that first line. That is the correction of a major perceptual distortion. We have been identifying with what arises in our mental emotional field. And when we have done that, those energies or those thought systems have been driving our behavior. And the correction process is observe what is arising consciously, and now we're learning to access the unconscious part of our mental emotional field. We have to, because as we create space and we can see that, now it's going to become clearer and clearer and clearer, not by intellect, not because someone else told us, but we're going to start to become aware of our deepest essence that is united with life itself. It is united with all of the attributes that we thought the world was lacking, and we were getting upset because we were feeling this world is meaningless. I am doing my best here, and it's almost like it's an impossible situation happening out in the world. And we get upset, but it's because we haven't yet recognized that we need to learn who we are. And the process on its own, the journey inward, is going to make everything very clear. So all of that is what we've already been practicing. That's what we've already been introduced to. That's the path that we're walking. From the early exercises, I've been inviting us to bring a relationship or a situation or a goal that we have, that we care about, to our awareness. And we've been practicing with that because I feel that it's almost like a direct access, like an elevator that helps us see more quickly what these lessons are helping us to perceive differently. And by now, you probably have had experiences that are just not in alignment with our truest, deepest aspiration. I want us to make sure that we understand that any time that there is an arising in our mental emotional field that does not feel good about us or about the other person or situation, please know that you're not doing anything wrong. There's a lot of judgment that can come when we start this journey inward. What is happening is that our mind has been carrying this interpretation. My mind has been carrying this thought, this memory from the past, and I just haven't learned to relate to it in a way that is good for me and good for others. Another way of saying that, we haven't learned to pause and relate to that feeling, to that emotion, without judging ourselves or without judging others. That's the only thing that is happening. So it's no one's fault. It's the workbook is helping us correct all of these perceptions by saying it's not the world's fault. It's also not your fault. It's all part of the journey, that while we don't know how to relate to an emotion or a thought, we are going to be driven by that thought until we realize, oh no, this is what I actually want to learn to recognize. This is what I'm discerning. This is what will help me come out of the patterns that are repeating over and over and over again. And when we start to see that, it is so liberating, because I have found at times, some of these feelings, thoughts, interpretations can be very difficult to feel. And as I have practiced with it and detach myself from the feeling and observe the feeling, the feeling of relief is to be experienced and to be enjoyed and to be celebrated. And that's why I am compelled to share this with others, because it's been so helpful in my own journey inward. So self-judgment, if you notice it, is very normal. And it's one of the things that upsets us, because we see something that has no meaning. It's meaningless on its own. It is our interpretation that gives it meaning. And the lesson is helping us to discern this for ourselves. The workbook is inviting us, has been for a number of lessons now, and I haven't mentioned it, has been encouraging us to include what we think is good as well as what we think is bad. So let us consider how the good or bad situation can be applied in the lesson today. If I think that something bad has happened, something bad is happening, something bad will happen, I will be interpreting, perceiving, thinking, acting based on this feeling that there is a hostile world out there. It's a difficult world. There's a battlefield out there. I used to think that a lot. On the other hand, if I have done my best to be a good listener, to be a good mother, to be a good daughter, to be a good sibling, to be a good employee, to be a good partner, to be a good whatever, all of these good attributes, if we identify with them and we don't recognize what is arising that impels us to be good, the same kind of upset is going to happen, because I'm still going to be seeing a meaningless world. I will still get upset because there's going to be a moment in which I don't feel seen, I don't feel appreciated, I don't feel recognized for all of the effort that I'm putting to be seen by the world as good. I am the one that needs to see me as good internally. So in that moment, I can apply the lesson. I think that I see a world that doesn't appreciate me. I think that I see a world that doesn't see me, doesn't recognize me, doesn't respond to my good intentions. That's what I'm seeing, that's what I'm perceiving, that's what I'm interpreting. But I'm actually upset because I see a meaningless world out there. And what we have been discussing here is the answer will always be to recognize the arising in the mind that says, I am not fill in the blank. I am not recognized. And notice that, oh, that is a meaningless interpretation. I am not recognized is the meaningless interpretation that is keeping me spinning and trying harder to be the good one. So that is an example of what needs to be seen is the meaningless thoughts that are showing me a meaningless world, like we practiced yesterday on lesson 11. That is what needs to be recognized in the practice from lesson 10. My thoughts don't mean anything. I am not being recognized shows up in my mental emotional field. Oh, my thought of not being recognized doesn't mean anything. I am the one interpreting it in a way that is meaningless. That is what the statement is saying in the very last page. It says, what is meaningless is neither good or bad. So why then should a meaningless world upset you? If you could accept the world as meaningless, let go of the world momentarily and start observing what is arising in your mental emotional field, and you let the truth be written upon it for you, what you're perceiving in the world, it would make you incredibly happy. That is to be practiced with, and that is to be seen for ourselves. So at the end of lesson 12, the workbook is helping us to recognize that what arises in the mental emotional field on its own is meaningless. It's neutral. There is an interpretation that the mind is making out of simple being in a human body. No one is at fault. We're simply making interpretations based on what we understood up until now about ourselves and others. And it's no one's fault. We're all in the same journey, and everyone is making interpretations left and right. But we're being invited to recognize the interpretation that we made that is painful. That is what actually had no meaning. That is what's truly meaningless, is the difficult, painful memory, the difficult, painful interpretation of that memory. Yesterday, we also spoke about the concept of forgiveness. And what we're learning to forgive are those interpretations that we have made that are very painful, that limit us. And so the whole forgiveness process is to, with a lot of kindness and a lot of compassion and a lot of freedom from self-judgment, we learn to relate to the self-judgment if it arises as, oh, this is another interpretation that on its own is what's creating a lack of meaning. I'm learning to relate to it from my truest essence. Then the next statement is very powerful, and it's the first time that the idea or concept of God is being introduced in the workbook so far. The next statement says, beneath your words, beneath your interpretation of what is arising in your mental emotional field, is written the word of God, is written the interpretation of God, is written the attributes of love and kindness and compassion and abundance and balance and peace and freedom, and all of the different attributes that we're constantly seeking out in the world without recognizing that we're one, we're united with those attributes and those qualities. And we need to recognize that the interpretations we're making are keeping us from witnessing that and having a direct experience of that. And it goes on to say, the truth upsets you now, but when your words have been erased, you will see the interpretation of truth, of love, of wisdom, of freedom, of abundance, of God, written on the human experience. That is the ultimate purpose of these exercises. So this is a powerful statement introduced in lesson 12. So with all of that said, go ahead and leave me your comments. That actually helps the system promote this to other people that may be interested in starting the workbook and or looking for a group to meet with. You're also invited to join the weekly calls. The link is in the description. Thank you for your practice, and we'll meet once again tomorrow for lesson 13. Thank you.